All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Another Wednesday morning miracle and miracle morning. And we had a super powerful call on Sunday. So I'm going to open it up the same way that I opened it up on Sunday, which is start off with an impactful and, with something that's a message right from the start. So we'll just jump right into it. This is for people that are watching live and watching the replays that they don't see about 10 minutes of me just, you know, killing time, right? While people are joining. So today we're going to talk about transforming our scarce and our poverty mind through the renewal of it, through the renewal of our mind. So how do we do that? Right? One of the chapters in the course, chapter 18, called there's a section called the little willingness, and then following that is the happy dream. The little willingness is all that is required of us to have massive transformation. A little bit of willingness, the willingness of letting go, of being right, of being in control, of whatever those fear and attack thoughts generate. I don't want to be right about that. And what the course says we do is we try to purify ourselves before we give it over to spirit, before we're willing to give it. The little willingness is basically saying you don't need to do that. By doing that, you're actually confusing yourself with the role of God's. You're confusing your role with God's role by trying to purify yourself first and then giving it over to spirit. That's what we try to do. See, our entire society has conditioned us to purify our own sins and be good and all of that first, and then we go get judged. And that isn't the case. It's simply moment to moment that I'm willing to give it up to spirit or God now. And so that's what the course says. Don't try to change and purify those thoughts. Don't try to turn the darkness to the light yourself, because you brought yourself there. The mind that created the problem is not going to be the mind that solves it. Now, last week we said the reminder was that all of us are given a voice, a tool that remembers the truth. And it's within all of us. That's why we can recognize love. That's why we feel what we feel. Without needing to be taught, we feel compassion, we feel love. Like those are natural feelings that is innate to all of us and is the extension of love. And we can all participate in that extension. And when we align ourselves to that frequency, things happen naturally for us. Miracles show up naturally. And those miracles come in the form of healing in relationships, right? Opportunities that show up out of nowhere, money that shows up out of nowhere. It all comes in miracles as long as we are in alignment to that. Now, the ego, right? So the course talks about the ego and the Holy Spirit. These are really the only two teachers. And the ego will put thoughts like jealousy, doubt, fear, unworthiness, all of those types of thoughts in that same category or frequency, which let's just call it dark frequencies. And then there's the light frequencies, which is love, compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, right? These are the thoughts that are light. You don't need to change the thoughts yourself. All you have to do is give it over. See, one of the traps is that when we try to change and shift and purify our thoughts first, it requires judgment, and judgment is the little secret way that ego attacks you, through judgment. And the judgment itself, we justify it to be good and bad based on our experience, which actually doesn't come from that. It just comes from the judgment itself. So there's 7 stages in which dark thoughts enter our mind. 7 stages in which darkness enters our mind. And so dark thoughts, egoic thoughts. 1 the first step is the entrance of it into our mind. It's what the Course calls the tiny mad idea. The thought that somehow we could be separate, the thought that somehow judgment and fear and all of that shows up in our mind. So the first stage is the entrance of the thought. The second stage of these thoughts is the entertainment of the thought. See, first the thought comes, then we entertain the thought, and then the third stage is the examination of the thought. We examine it, we justify, we look for reasoning why it should exist and why it makes sense. So we examine the thoughts. Then the fourth stage is engaging in action that brings those thoughts to reality. This is why all thoughts create. All thoughts create because our thought, at the fourth stage, we engage now in action. And what that action may look like is, I don't trust people that are like this. I don't trust women. Every time my mom says this or my sister does this, and this is how they are. Those are the thoughts that we now are engaging. We are creating action. We're engaging those thoughts with action that actually brings it into the physical realm and manifests it for us. The fifth stage is we experience the temporary pleasure of it. There is pleasure in gossiping, temporary pleasure in gossiping, in feeling like a victim, in blaming, in attacking, in being right. There is temporary pleasure in that. Okay, what am I on? The sixth? The sixth stage is we excuse our action and we justify it. All right, this is the 7 stages of dark thoughts that come into your mind. So we excuse the action and we justify it because we're a victim to it. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how the thoughts came. But you know what? It's not my fault. It's actually theirs, right? It's somebody else's fault that I think this way. And see, the ego is attacking you through the back door. It's growing something inside you that you don't even know. Because it can't attack you head on. It comes from the back door. And it comes where you're most vulnerable. And where you're most vulnerable is where you're most complacent and is where you're most complacent and where you're most numb to things. So I'll say that again, like the ego comes in through the back door where you are most vulnerable, where you are complacent, righteous, numb about things. Okay, even where you boast, you have overconfidence. The ego can come through all those areas because you're the most vulnerable. You aren't awake to the truth of who you are in those moments. You're caught up in the world. So we justify and we excuse those because we're like, you know what? It's not really in my control. But you chose something. Remember last week we said that if you have a loveless experience, it's because you had a loveless thought first. And now it's time for some spiritual or mental cleansing. It is time for that. Now, the last step of what happens when the dark thoughts come is then, after you've justified it, after you excuse the actions, okay, it enslaves the host. You are the host, and the dark thoughts enslave you. And we are all, I don't want to say the word victim, but we are all susceptible and we all do that. There are areas in our life, as long as you are wrapped in flesh and you have a body, you will go through all of these things. Now, today's call really, and all of these calls are reminders that you can cleanse yourself through the renewal of the mind, giving all of these dark thoughts over. See, they come and they take over. If you let it go through all those stages, it has become a monster. It has become a monster, but what you do is you renew your mind by giving it over to love, give it over to God. Because love is God and God is love and love is all encompassing, even the monster itself that has been created in your mind is easily transformed like that through love. And we just got to give it over. Now, we like to make big monsters before we deal with it. We want things to be out of control before we actually face the monster. But it is much easier on a daily basis. And this is, a couple of weeks ago, my friend was on here. She always comes on when she has when things hit the fan, when there is no other, she's just and it's the same routine every time. She first messages me on Instagram, and it's just a simple, hey, I really like this post. And then I know that on this next ACIM call, she's gonna show up, and then there's gonna be some big event that's going on, right? And then we go through it, and then there's a call after the ACIM call to get some coaching around it, and then we do, and then MIA for another, I don't know, a couple months till something comes up. Because we want to deal with all this stuff when it becomes a monster. It is much easier for us on a regular daily basis to heal and renew our mind and deal with the monster when it's a baby, not when it's a giant monster. So that's why these practices and these reminders are so important for me. These calls are so important for me, because if I get busy, I know this call, I can deal with my monsters while it's still a baby. I don't want to deal with it not doing any practices, just becoming numb and all this for months, and then all of a sudden I got this huge monster in my mind that's taking over everything. And we all do that. We put things aside, ooh, yeah, that's not that bad yet. The relationship with this person hasn't hit the fan yet, but I can already see all the signs of it hitting the fan. But we'll deal with it when it really blows up. And that's what we do. And that's the whole procrastination part. We have to establish daily, or at least bi-daily, every other day or something, right? To create some sort of ritual for us to practice giving things over to spirit and to God. It's a practice. It's a muscle that you strengthen. But when we become numb to it, when we become comfortable with the monster that's just brewing. I don't know why I'm using monster so much this morning, but monster just happens to be the word. Okay. I think I meant to use beast, but now I'm using monster. So, so this monster, we let it grow. We let it get super big. And there's no need for that, right? We can tame it, take care of it, give it over while it's still a baby, while it doesn't have us, while we are not enslaved by those thoughts yet. Now, there's definitely thoughts within each one of us that has grown to be a monster, a big bad monster. And we scan our minds to look, what are the big bad monsters? What are the big bad monsters that we literally live our life out of? All your belief systems that hold you back, there's a monster behind that. I don't know how big the monster has gotten, how long you've been feeding the monster. But once it's caught on to you and it enslaves you, the beautiful thing is that you don't have to do anything with it. You just give it over. Give it over so I don't need to be right about the things that the monster has me. Okay, Natalia, go ahead.
I have a question. So, how does the course, what does the course say about repressing feelings? So you're talking about this monster, and I can think of certain situations in which I fed the monster. I can think of, okay, I can see that, but also I can think of situations in which it got to a point where perhaps I was um, not willing or wanting to see. and kind of like the ostrich, like putting the head in the sand kind of thing. And then it got to a point where like, bam, And so, what does the course say about that? How does that in relationship to what you're talking about?
So you've let the monster grown out of control, and it basically controls and dictates the way that you react and the way you relate to the world. Because you've let the monster grow so big that it runs you because it's enslaved a host. And so the course says, see, here's the great thing about what the course says. It's always so straight and so simple. Hey Adam, what's up? Somebody heard us. So it's very simple. The way that you deal with a big monster is the same way that you deal with the little baby. You give it over to spirit, you give it over to God. And the course says, without your own judgment. So let's call it the big monster. The big monster weighs 1,000 pounds. The baby monster weighs 2 pounds. Okay. You take it while we're in this physical world, in our world that we see as real, this reality, lowercase reality, the big monster seems to weigh a lot more. It's harder to move. Seems like it's harder to give up because gravity is the judgment. Okay, let's call it that. But if we take it and we bring both of these monsters, baby and big, whatever, we brought it to space where there is no judgment, there is no gravity, there's no weight, they move around the same. You poke it and it just kind of goes in this direction because there's no gravity. There's no judgment. So the course says the Holy Spirit can deal with all of your monsters, no matter how big it is, in the same fashion. And it can heal you just like that, as long as you're willing to give it over. Now, the problem is when the monster gets bigger, you're unwilling to let it go. It's harder for you to move it because you think that you have to purify your thoughts before you give it over. Because it's and then there's the whole like looking good conversation that we have in this world too. We gotta be a certain way before we give it over to God. This vessel, this mind, this soul over to God. We gotta be good. Or, it's the same. And when we look at it that way, and we look at how we do relationships, oh man, and how we do things, we gotta be perfect at what we're doing before we deliver it. Things got to be perfect before we show up. My first Instagram post, I better be a phenomenal speaker already. I got to be awesome before I post my first video. It's the same thing. You do not need to be like fixed or cured before you go and give it over. There's simply a trust, a faith that you just step into, and every one of us is given that opportunity every single moment. Things will show up in front of us, whether it be our kids, our family, our work situations, our investments, whatever. Things will show up, and it's an opportunity for you to step into trust and faith. It's an invitation to it. The worse that it seems to become, the greater the invitation really is for you. The greater the opportunity, I should say, that you can step into that opportunity because you have made a monster out of it. Get rid of the big monsters and start, right? You give the big monsters over now and say, okay, I don't want it anymore. I don't need to be right about it. I'm not justifying or whatever with it. I'm willing. See, last week we said, please show me how to see this differently. And then I am willing to see this differently. The mantra, that's it. Everything that you are going through in your life, use those two mantras and allow the answers to come. See, don't seek. The course says don't seek for answers, but let the answers come. Seek to receive the answers. That means it's a different thing to look for answers versus let me look for the channel in which the answers come. Let me clear the channel in which the answer comes. Not look for the answer. So that's what the course says. Okay. Damaris, hey, it's been so long. Welcome back. We missed you. Welcome, Galia.
Good morning. I'm driving, of course. I'm always running around, but I've missed you guys, and I had heard your speech last time, and I was like, I need to sign on today. But this really hits home. I can really relate to Natalia. As women, and probably I'm just generalizing here, right? As a mom, some of you don't know, but I have an autistic child, so I'm always trying to manage and trying to control and trying to, figure out how to do things and what's the right thing to do. And my kid got himself into some serious trouble. I have a court hearing coming up soon, and my old self would try to figure out what's the plan, what's the game plan, how am I going to deal with. And this time, I just like completely surrendered. I'm just like, God, you got this. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And it's like the load of stress has been released from me. I don't know if my kid is going to be charged with a felony. He's 14, or if it's going to be a misdemeanor. He assaulted someone. Um, it's a serious situation, and I can't even tell you how amazed and at peace I feel. I'm like, God's in control. Whatever's going to happen, I'll deal with it at the time. Because otherwise, I would drive myself crazy trying to make a game plan. What am I going to do? How am I going to address this? Of course, logistically, we got a lawyer and just going to like surrender, let them do, provide whatever it is that they need, documents. But it really does give me like peace of mind to like surrender in such a serious situation. I could have really like spiraled down that rabbit hole, trying to control the situation and trying to figure it out. But I really truly, and I really want to thank Alex and the Course in Miracles I've been attending on and off for years. And, even though I don't always come on, all those messages, they stay with me. I just kind of remind myself, okay, God's got this. Like, I don't need to do nothing. I just, need to, like you said, be in gratitude, be grateful for, what's showing up in my space and what do I get to learn. So thank you guys.
Wow.
So good to see you, Dolores. So
Yeah.
good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Hi.
shedding some light and
Welcome.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
this
I'm
is
just like,
Alzheimer's Day.
yeah, I'm like so amazed. Like, honestly, like, you guys have seen me a mess, crying, trying to figure stuff. I mean, I can't even tell you how at peace I feel. And this is a serious situation, like, I'm kind of like surprised myself. And it's not that I'm like, because I've done that too, like suppress my feelings. Obviously, I was like feeling a little anxious when I first heard the situation. But yeah, ever since I just like surrendered and like, whatever's gonna be is gonna be, and it's gonna be the best thing that's supposed to happen. That kind of attitude. But I definitely know that the support of this call and this team, even if I'm not on it, has really, really helped me in this situation today.
Yeah. We're all connected, and some of these messages that we hear, what remains with us will always remain with us. Because we know the truth. The truth inside. And I think about some, now that you're sharing, I think about some of my struggles. I'm like, man, that's like nothing compared to what you're dealing with and what you've been dealing with this whole time. Right? I'm like, my stuff is like, I don't know, some stress with one of the investment properties, or something like that with a car and this and that. And I'm like, man, like, this is what you're going through, right? So like, part of these calls, the coming together of it, really, this is what creates the call. You guys come in and sharing, I share what I share, and then you guys share it from what you're hearing, and it just makes it relatable for everybody. And the healing happens all together, because you are a part of this family, you are a part of this tribe, right? Everybody here, you guys are on these calls, you guys are part of the tribe, whether you know it or not. The awakening of the world, the tribe that is waking up, that there is you're connecting to the frequency of love. And whether you're here or not, you will remember this. And as long as I feel like these calls are going, you will feel the connection too. And that's why I've in the past couple months put these calls on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, because I wanted to touch more people, especially people that have been on these calls. You know what it's about. And it's a calling and a reaching back out to them. Hey, we're here. That this work is still done, that there's people supporting you too, whether you're here or not. And what you're going through too, Damaris, is so inspiring, because through what you're going through, I can see the capacity in which our greatness, what we're able to do, what we're capable of dealing with, how much love we're capable of having, how much patience we're able to have, and how we can always turn that and we can be faithful with it. We can bring faith into it and trust. So, thanks for joining us today and blessing us and sharing what you're going through, with us. Puts a lot of things into perspective for me too. It's a great reminder. So yeah. Anyone else want to share anything?
Yeah, I'll share. Only because Damaris shared, and haven't heard her so long. And I just wanted to let you know I've been going through it a lot. And just a month ago, I probably was at the lowest point. And I've had some pretty low points in my life, man, especially during my teenage years. But about a month ago, I was like almost ready to throw in the towel on my business and everything. And again, these calls, and even sometimes knowing that these calls, even if I wasn't here, knowing that they were going on, I always felt the energy, and it always motivated you to keep on going. And a month later, thanks to these calls and our Legends calls and the team, the tribe that we have, I mean, I'm like on top of the world again. I'm on top of the world, and that's the power of this synergy that we have. Whether you're here or not, I feel you guys. If I miss a call, I know that you guys are on here, and I know you guys are praying for me and pulling for me. So it's in the air. It's not something you could tangibly put your hands on, but it's for real. It's for real. And thank you so much for sharing, Damaris.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here, and just, I feel like I can always count on you to support me in whatever it is I'm doing for years and years now, from like the beginning. It's awesome. Appreciate you. Okay. Anyone else want to share anything? So, right. How do we now come back? How do we come back? How do we get to that state of peace? And the first thing is that to know what you actually want. I don't want these thoughts. I don't want the monster. Right? But there's a part of us that, in step number, whatever step that was, where we excuse and justify why the monster exists, why it's okay. We're being right about it. First, we got to realize that there is no value in keeping this monster. And this monster represents any thoughts that you have that is holding you back. So I was reading, this is something that I just wrote, so I'm not reading from a page, but it definitely stems from me reading chapter 18, the little willingness and the happy dream. Okay, that section. It's chapter 18 is one of my favorite chapters right now, because I feel like I'm on that like cusp, right? The chapter is actually called The Passing of the Dream. So this is the dream that we live and we participate in. And like sometimes I'm super involved in it, and then others I'm kind of, yes, I will, Damaris, I'll share it in our WhatsApp chat. And other times I'm like, okay, I am beyond the dream. Okay, I know there's a spiritual world. I'm a spiritual being participating there. And then other times I fall super deep into the physical world, the world that we, are all a part of in this flesh suit that we're in. Right. And so the three practices, Okay, it's just a simple shifting of your mind, the renewing of your mind of these things, which is love, gratitude, and forgiveness. See, this is the truth. We all know this. That's why everybody, regardless if you practice anything, knows that this is the truth. When we hear this, hairs stand up on our arms and on our necks when we hear the truth. When Damaris was sharing, hairs on my neck, if there is hairs on my neck, it's standing. I can feel a little goosebumps. We recognize that it's within all of us. We just have to tap into it. We have to participate more into it. And let's call it, I don't want to call it a monster, but it's also a something that you can grow and make it bigger. It's a unicorn. So it's not the monster, but you can grow the unicorn. You let it grow bigger. Unicorn is the love, is the forgiveness, is the compassion, is the kindness. We can grow and foster that. We could grow and foster that little monster. The good monster, the love monster. Okay, not the fear monster. And it's the same thing. The same way that we allow it to happen is one, the thought comes in. Oh, the thought of let me be kind and compassionate. Instead, let me interrupt what I normally would do, how I would normally react. Then I entertain the thought. The steps are the same. It's just how you use it. Then you entertain the thought, and then you examine the thought a little more. This makes sense. I think I'm getting more love experiences from my love thoughts. Okay, it's working out. And then we engage in action that brings the thought to the physical realm. This is like the halfway point. Because first it was just a thought, like we don't know if it's real or not. But because thoughts produce form, all thoughts produce form, now we engage in action to make this real. See, this is the process of growing that thought, of growing this monster or the unicorn. And then from it, you experience the pleasure of, of the fear thoughts and attack thoughts is temporarily you get to be right. You get to feel maybe superior or a sense of better than in that moment. Better than, and the only reason you would actually find pleasure in having the better than is because there's insecure thoughts in the first place. That's the only pleasure that bullies get, is that temporarily they get to feel better than, which is compensating for the insecurities that exist beneath. Right? The only reason you need to brag about something would be because on some level you think you're not worthy of something. Right? So you got to brag about it and make yourself a little more whatever, feel a little bit better. But it's only temporary, right? Because that experience, because it's temporary and we know it's, some part of us feel like icky about it, we got to justify. We got to constantly justify. See, this beast, the beast of the ego, needs constantly to be fed. The unicorn also needs to be fed, but it gets fed a different way. It gets fed through the channeling of it, through the tapping into its innate self. That's why there's an abundance of it. See, the monster requires our feeding. The unicorn taps into just the abundance of the universe, of God. There's an infinite amount that just comes. All you have to do is tap into it, and then all of a sudden the natural flow of it grows it. So, these like metaphors kind of just formulate while we're having these calls, and I have these weird pictures and images. Hopefully they land, right? When I try to have Firefly AI and ChatGPT kind of like summarize what I'm saying, it gets really messed up sometimes because AI just doesn't think what I'm thinking. And so I hope that this metaphor is landing in terms of the monster and the unicorn, I guess. Go ahead, Natalia.
Yeah, this really landed for me. I love that metaphor. And as you were speaking, what came to me was how the unicorn for me is it grows and expands. And then I saw Marissa, and what came to mind was in community. So when I see someone win or someone's success, someone reach out to me, like it grows with the love and it expands as I give. And I guess that also covers in the, what the Course in Miracles says, that the giving and the receiving happen simultaneously. So I feel like the unicorn grows as that happens. And the more I see that and the more I concentrate on that, the more it's fed and grows.
Yeah, for sure. Johan.
Hey, brother. Firstly, I just want to thank you with the depth of my heart. Since I've been on these calls, I've experienced so much changes physically in my life. And this discussion really hits big because I've reconnected with my ex. And thanks to your guidance, I've actually been able to show up as the man I wanted to be. And that's completely changed our relationship. And I just want to acknowledge and thank you and say it's so true. Like this morning, I woke up in bed and I was stressed about everything I had to do and I had to go. And I realized that she would take on that energy. So I fed the unicorn this morning. I actually went over and hugged her and kissed her and made her feel good. And she got up and said, let's get you to your house. Like no argument, supporting me. And it was so fluid. And I just remember how many times we had fights. And that was because I was feeding that monster of fear and worry. And I just gave away to spirit today, thanks to you. I'm like, no, it's going to be divine. It's going to be perfect. The best thing I can do now is, give love, because that's the one thing that I want. So I just wanted to acknowledge you and thank you so much for all you do, brother. Thank you for everybody for sharing. I listen all the time. And I just wanted to give love to all of you and gratitude because I know we're going through a lot. And I just feel like the unicorns are rising. So thank you, Alex. I love you so much, brother.
The unicorn is arising. I love that. I'm writing that down. It's going to be a chapter in my book.
That's all you, bro. You're creating it.
No, we are. Unicorn is arising. Great. So if you guys remember any of the metaphors and the analogies that I use, please remind me, because right now I have the battlefield, I have the monster and the unicorn, I have the boat. Those are the three that I remember that I shared. Right? Oh, wait, I think there's the waves. The waves and the sunshine. The sun rays. Okay. All right. Look at that. We just created 4 chapters of my book, which will be written someday or no day. I don't know. If it happens, it happens.
Alex, you also use the analogy of the boat, which is there for me, is always landing. Like whenever you need, like you need to let go of the boat once you cross the river.
Yes, my boat. I wrote it down. I remember that. So I don't remember all the analogies because it comes randomly. So yeah, I appreciate these calls. I don't know. I don't have these analogies before I start this call. It's literally happening as it's here. So it's definitely being co-created by everyone here, by your shares, by your experiences. And every time we breathe life into this call, right? Recognizing and remembering what this call brings for us. I get just as much. I'm in the same space. There's a learning and teaching at the same time. I don't even know if I'm teaching because I'm here learning more than I'm teaching. I feel like. So it's a really weird dance that's going on these calls. Go ahead, Marlene.
Alex, I didn't know you were writing a book, but definitely another concept that I know is from the course is how we wake up, just like children. I love that analogy because I can give that grace and love to my own children, but when it comes to me, my goodness, there is a lot of like impatience and just not giving grace, right? Like when in the hell are you going to do this and that? Like
how I can give the same grace and space and patience to myself, giving that analogy that whenever we're waking up to who we really are, we need that kind of love and patience. I just love the analogy of how we wake up. So make sure you say something. Okay.
Yeah, that's actually in the course somewhere. I can usually find it pretty fast. And I read it all the time because it's just a great way to remember how we wake each other up and ourselves, the gentleness that comes from it. All right. Yeah, so back to the way in which we, I guess, overcome, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. Overcome all these fear thoughts and dealing with the monster is to practice this daily stepping into love, gratitude, and forgiveness. These three parts, right? Love itself, recognizing and contemplating what love is contemplating your relationship with God. God is love, love is God. Love is an encompassment or encompassing of everything, of all the possible things that can show up. It encompasses all of it because from the space of love, we can see the truth in everything. That means the truth rests within all things, all situations, somewhere. Our perceptions of it, our interpretations of people and events and things that are happening, we are looking at the surface. We see the words that are said, we see the actions, and we see all of that. But beneath that is love. And the reason why love exists is because it takes love for you to look beneath, to look beyond. That's why there's a calling of love. It's everything is love or a call for love. Not that they're calling for love. See, this is the confusion. People in the course, when they study, they're like, ooh, this person is doing this because they're calling for love. No, you are seeing some kind of action because you are calling for love. You're seeing something that is wrong, not because they're calling for love, but because you're calling for love. You aren't seeing the love that is happening in the space right now. What you're seeing is the surface, the actions that have been manifested from the entertainment of monsters. And all people are mirrors to show you where you have been feeding your monster. That's why the Course says all of our problems come from the idea that separation is real. Separation. There is you doing something, and then there's me doing something. But when we bring it back to oneness, that there is no separation and you are simply a mirror. Last week, we talked about how God is this big, or the universe is this big computer that is always rectifying itself, moving in the direction of infinite love. Everything that steps out of line, another thing comes in front of it to show it so that it can be rectified. So the solution is right there. And that's people for us. Who are the people that trigger you the most? They are showing you where your triggers are. That brings us to the gratitude part. How do we heal all of our mindsets and all the things that we see that's a problem? Gratitude. Wow, this person is showing me the trigger. My God, I have this freaking trigger. I want peace and I want to be the best version of myself. I want true self-realization, right? Okay, if I'm doing that, then this person who's bugging the shit out of me, who's my sister-in-law or my mom or whoever that is just constantly triggering me, causing me to lose my peace, they are mirrors. They're trying to show you, they're holding a mirror up for you to show you where your trigger is. So you can stop triggering, because where you trigger, you will trigger somewhere else. It may look like a different form. You judge right here, you're going to take that judgment and bring it to the rest of the areas in your life. You cannot escape yourself. That means the mirror has been held up for you in this moment. First, gratitude. Man, thank you. Thank you for being my teacher and being my mirror. Oh my God, it's what I've been looking for, is somebody to show me where the trigger is so I can heal it. And you just doing the things that trigger me the most. Oh man. Blessings, gratitude, right? So stepping into that gratitude starts to shift. As that gratitude is happening, as gratitude is entering your mind, you can literally picture darkness and light overcoming it. Like, see it, because your energy is dark when you're triggered. As you step into gratitude, picture it in your mind that there is a light coming over this darkness. That every time you step into gratitude, create the visual in your mind of what's happening. Maybe the light that you want to see is purple or pink. Great. Or yellow. In your mind, create the visual of what's happening always, but keeping it very simple. All right. So, gratitude. That's why gratitude is so powerful. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is the next step. Forgiveness is, in the trainings and transformational training, we call it a clearing. To give as before. I'm going to give as before I created all this judgment. Forgiveness. I forgive you, not because you did something to me and I'm just, forgiving you. I forgive you because I thought that you did something to me that you did not actually do. Because I saw it incorrectly. I saw it wrong. Now, this part of forgiveness has all the different layers, because we can say, man, but hey, I was sexually abused. It happened. How do I forgive that as before? Now, the depth of that reflection goes into who you truly are. Are you your body? Are you a body? Is this just all that you are? Is that you are a body? Or are you a spirit? Or are you a soul beyond the body? And then the capacity in which you're able to forgive. That's going to show you to what extent you can connect to God, to source energy. Because God, source energy of love, is not contained inside a body. You as an extension of that is much, much greater. The body limits you in all different ways. Everything about the body creates limitation and scarcity. Everything. Now, if seen correctly, just like seeing relationships and people correctly, that they are mirrors for you, even your body is a learning device for something. See, now you recognize your body for what it really is. It isn't you as the spirit that operates and is witnessing through the body. That's not you. That body isn't you. That body is a vessel and a vehicle for you to learn. It's a learning device. We go through all of our pains, our traumas. We enjoy, we cry, we laugh, all through physical sight and physical feelings, I guess, right? Feeling through the physical body. Whether we hear some sound or we taste something good or we smell something bad, all of it. Our experience comes through our physical body. Now, using it correctly, right? Now we go back to this, recognizing the body as the right vehicle, as what it is now stepping more into this love space. It's encompassed in there. And then we can offer gratitude to our body. And remember, thoughts create form. When we don't have gratitude for our body, what happens to our body? When all we talk about is sickness, what happens to our body? When things are always not enough and you have stress, stress literally manifests into the body. You get a blood test when you're stressed out, cholesterol's high, everything's high. When you're not stressed and you get a blood test, it's completely different. But we focus so much on the fixing of the body. Then we take medication based on, and this is, I have a thing about all this, but I do it anyway so that whatever, I don't let it affect me, because my wife will find peace in it right now when I'm taking these things. Right? Because like, oh my God, your whatever is too high and your this is too low. And I'm like, okay, it is that in this moment, but it can also change, right? As I experience something else in my mind, our thoughts produce form. So now our thoughts about our body, right? This is the ultimate, the final teaching device is our body. The first and the last lesson that you're going to learn in life, in this journey, is that I am not my body. At some point, you're going to have to come to terms and peace with laying this device down and all the things that this device created in the last whatever amount of years, which is a blip, a little tiny fraction of your existence, this life in the body. Now, this conversation starts to get real deep. You contemplate it, you reflect it, you do whatever you want with it. Just know that the Course says that your first and your final lesson is going to be, I am not my body. And you're going to have to, at some point, surrender it and give it over to God. Here you go. I don't know what's next. We will surrender at some point. Whether you do it now or you do it later, you're doing it. That's why it's also, for us, we don't need to judge where other people are at either. Because we're all on the path to waking up. Me going to worry about when someone else is going to wake up or when this whole thing's going to be fixed, unnecessary. That's not your problem. Your problem is to play the role and take care and tend to the garden in which you've been assigned, to the piece of the garden that you've been assigned. You go and worry about everyone else's gardens and going, oh, this is not good, and you should cut your grass this way and plant things this way. Your own thing's going to go to shit. Tend and worry about your own garden and recognize what the service and what the purpose of this garden is in the awakening of the whole. You do such a great job with yours that it inspires everyone else to find their roles. And that's everyone's always like, oh, what's your purpose of what do you do? What's your purpose? And my whole thing is just to inspire you to do whatever it is that you feel called to do. You don't need to do what you're doing if it's not bringing you joy. You don't have to do it. It brings me tremendous joy and fulfillment to just speak. To speak this, because it's just me practicing talking to myself, really. That I'm becoming clearer every single time that I get on one of these calls. I become clearer every time I run a call on Monday night, Thursday night, Saturday. I do calls 7 days a week, multiple times a day. And people are like, oh my God, how do you just keep doing all this stuff? I'm like, I really don't feel like it's that much that I'm doing. Because I'm living inside the calling in which I feel like brings fulfillment and joy for me. It brings me fulfillment and joy because it taps me into a sense of peace, a sense of trust, and I feel good after these calls. As these calls are coming, I'll be stressed about something else. Like Johan said, he wakes up, it's like, oh my God, there's a list of things I got to do. Right? I got a list of things I got to do. I got to go get a note, get something notarized and go do this and that, and then go put this house on sale and then deal with this and raise capital and all these things. I got to do all that too. And then I come onto this call and it's like time stops and that this conversation is the only thing that matters. And it's a prayer. These are moments of prayer when you can when a group of us come together, it's a satsang where we come together and we bring positivity to our mind, to the collective, that we recognize inside this call, we are contributing to the healing of the world. There are people's lives being touched that we don't even know right now as this call is happening. You're going to go and Johan's ex's life is now affected, and Damaris's kids' life are affected. I don't know. The judge's life might be affected. The attorney, everyone. As these calls are happening, you guys will perform miracles out there, and you guys will remind yourself and others of who they are, and you guys will inspire. And so, yeah, I do these calls. I'm conscious of the ripple effect that it's causing right here, right now, but I can't see how far that ripple goes. I'm just excited to hear stories of it years later. I don't need instant gratification like, oh, what'd you guys get out of this call? Oh, yeah, tell me. It's like 4 years later, somebody comes back onto the call and goes, oh, my God. What you said that day, that time, or whatever, I can't even remember it, but that landed for me and I still use it. We all really just need one small piece of information to take action on and to live into fully and deeply. And we will find God through there. If it's, sometimes we hear some information in like yoga or on a YouTube video, and it just stays with us, right? We hear all these things and we're trying to write down and take notes of all this stuff, but the things that will stay with you will just stay with you. The things that you truly resonate with, and you can trust that. I used to love taking notes, but then I realized that I just have a whole bunch of notebooks and I don't look at them anyways. And now I think that the solution is this remarkable, right? This remarkable is remarkably confusing. I now don't have all the notebooks. It's in 1,000 folders in my remarkable, and I can't find anything anyways. It's ridiculous, actually. It's remarkably ridiculous. It's just the insanity of me trying to retain all this information. I'm like, what am I doing? Like right now, I wrote down the 5 different chapters in this section, but my notes go hundreds of pages. Take care, brother. It goes hundreds of pages. I'm not going to be able to find all this again. As much as I try to be organized in there, it just doesn't happen. Now, there are things that just stay with me on this call. Hopefully, these metaphors help me remember the story, and maybe it'll stay with me. And the more times I repeat it, the more I'll remember it. But, I don't even bring a notebook to conferences anymore. I'm like, I'm going to write down, if it stays with me, I will write it down at the end of the day. And sometimes in the moment, I'll be like, wow, that was a really good saying. And I'll write it down, and I'll lose it. Never find it again. It's like, I got like 7 Grant Cardone notebooks. They all got stuff written in it. Never opened it to look at it before. I mean, it's crazy what we try to retain when it's very simple. We just let it come.
There are so many parallels sometimes that I'm like, my God, he definitely must be my brother from another mother, because I do the same thing. Imagine I did a financial workshop with Grant Cardone where you actually fill out the workbook on the PDF. It was like months ago, and I haven't closed it for my browser because I'm like, one day I'm going to get to that and I'm going to fill it out and have it, and it's not going to happen. I printed it out and everything. I didn't fill it out either. I got books and books of programs and stuff like all kinds of nice journals and everything. Like, oh, I write 1 page, a couple of pages, and then forget about it. I'll never find this shit again.
So Brooke said to put your notes in the notes section of your phone. You should see the notes section of my phone, okay? The notes section of my phone has 258 notes, okay, sections. Oh, God. Do you know how many notes are labeled aha moments? Let's see what's in here. And I will write just paragraphs in there, and I'm like, I don't want to read this paragraph right now. Okay, let's see. I just randomly scrolled, okay, to go to an aha moment. This is actually kind of short. So this is from August 19th, 2021. Let's see what this aha moment's all about. Am I solid in my purpose? People can't coach themselves 90% of the times. If you have real solid foundation and discipline, you can discern and have great clarity. What gets you upset is what you make your God and what you're worshiping. Make it an active process, not see, I don't even know what I'm writing. I'm like, what? Anyways, go ahead, Brooke. Tell me. School me.
You're so cute. I'm not saying you have to write a novel. It's just when I hear something, just like sometimes on Instagram, on the little notes, I'll rewrite it or I'll quote somebody and share it. So, for example, McGann and I were on a call the other day regarding this book project, and I wrote this down what she said. So, like, holy shit, that's so good. And what she said was, I'm not going to change who I am just because you showed me who you are. So for me, I write things down that, holy shit, that moved me. And then when I was reading A Year of Miracles, the daily, thing from Marianne Williams, I can't even talk. She said, love interrupts the past and opens the future. So for me, it's quotes. So when I'm at 10X conference and like TJ Jakes was up and all of these amazing speakers, they will say something. They will say a quote, or you will say something like, holy shit, that hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm writing that down. And sometimes on social media, I will quote them and put that back into the world and hope that that quote impacts somebody else. So it doesn't have to be a novel. I feel you in the notes section. I have 586 notes, but I search for things. I'm like, okay, what is something about, love or Courts and Miracles? And I'll label who said it. Alex said that, and I'll tag Alex or ACIM. And so it's just a cool way when something hits me that I will go back and look for inspiration or share it on social media and quote that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no doubt that works, and if I'm just not very organized, so that's my, I should probably don't take it like you shouldn't or you should take notes. I'm saying for me, right? Like I am just not very organized, and I'll write things down very quickly without writing because sometimes you try to write shorthanded, right? So you can remember and it doesn't take that long. You're not missing something else that's being said. And I'm like trying to write it down with like codes, right? My own Morse codes or what codes of things. It's freaking silly. But that's me because, yeah. No, go ahead.
Even when you write down, sorry to interrupt you, because I have a gratitude journal and a regular journal that kind of puts my thoughts down, because sometimes we don't realize how far we've come. And the only time I'll go back and look at the gratitude journal or I'll go back and look at some of my thoughts and how I was feeling was like, damn, I feel like I'm doing all of these things and I'm getting minimal traction. I'm not, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. But then when I go back and look in my moments of frustration, I realize, you know what, you've actually done a lot. You've actually look how you were feeling a few months ago in comparison to where you're at now. So I think it helps put things in perspective as well. But I also retain information better when I write it down. But you are right. I will go to conferences. I'll write everything down. Things that pop, I will put in my note chart, and it helps with social media content. I'll repurpose some of that stuff and put it into my own words to share it. And then I'll toss and throw all those papers away.
Yeah, true. And sometimes for me, it's like decluttering all this stuff actually helps me be clear, right? Because it's just, what I write down is what I make real in my mind already anyways. I already know. That is calligraphy. Yeah. And it works. Like I do think writing things down, like I write things down. I still do it. Doesn't mean I stop doing it. It's just sometimes the insanity of it for me. Right? I'm just like, oh, wow, that's crazy. So it works. I mean, writing things down definitely helps you retain it probably a little bit better. But also there's a level of trust to just know that what you know and what you want to know will stay with you. And if you do constant practices around it, it will, you will retain it more. Hi, Elise. Good to
Hey,
see you.
Alex, how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, our subconscious mind remembers everything anyway. So just trust that. Yeah, I like what you said, just trust it. And I do the same thing. I take so much notes, and later on, like, I would know what I need to know, the right actions to take, and just really that trust. And I think I love what you're doing this, Monday and Wednesdays. Because when you do that, like what you guys were talking about, it's not like in the emergency. Okay, now I gotta tap in and then see what I can find. But it's that every day we're building that consciousness, and so when something arises, we can see it from a perspective. It's like, oh, okay, I can handle this. I trust what I will know exactly what to do. And that affirmation is so wonderful. It's like, deep within us that we would just know there's that relationship that we build with our higher power, or whatever name you want to call it, right? Spirits, God, love, whatever. But it's just like we just know, and we don't go into the panic mode. So yeah, that's really beautiful what you share, Alex.
Yeah.
And everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here too. I love seeing you here, and every time you contribute is very centered and grounded, and and also a great reminder. So yeah. Okay, anybody else want to share anything? Marissa, hi.
Hello. I think for me, what's hitting home today is the love, the gratitude, and the forgiveness. Um, Last week, my son lost his father, and I've watched him use those three things to bridge a family together. He doesn't speak much, but he's a wise soul. He's been literally tending to gardens for about 2 years. Last week, he dropped a building on some property that he bought. And the timing of everything, and the way that the death happened was a shock to everyone, and had people kind of pulling apart. And I watched my son see those three things bring everyone together. Um, and so I just want to thank you, because my son said, don't you have an apple cold coming up? You gotta laugh. So these calls really do help that collective love, and I've watched it spread not only for my son to be their parent, but through our entire family. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, he's amazing. I think he's got so much wisdom within him already, and I think the next, like, our I see so much. I love working with teens and working with young adults, because there's so much wisdom, like all the past generations of wisdom and of the mistakes that we've made, and all of that is in this next generation too. And they surprise me all the time, like all of them. Every teen that I work with, every young entrepreneur I work with, literally, the amount of wisdom that comes through them. I'm like, oh my God, where was I when I was at 16 years old, when I was 15? I remember losing my dad when I was 21. I lost my shit. Like there was no wisdom, no, like, I don't know. I mean, now I'm reflecting back onto it. There's probably a lot of teachings and stuff from it, but I lost my shit. Like there was not bringing anybody together, anything. I was not in a good place. Yeah, so I mean, that's so powerful. I'm gonna reach out to him too. Thank you for sharing that.
Can I share something?
Yes. Hi.
Good morning. So which it brings me to the loss of the father. It brings me back to my times of when I lost my dad. I was around 20 years old, but I wasn't living in Venezuela. I was in Mexico. And one of the see that just sometimes you don't put the dots together, and maybe you never put the dots together, but spirits knows how to work it out. When I left Venezuela, it was with the intention to be with this partner that we got engaged, and I moved to Mexico City, and but he was an alcoholic, and in the process, I was asking myself why I got into this, what I had to look here, and I ended up being in Al-Anon, in a with a beautiful community for partners and families of alcoholic and drug addicts anonymous. And I never understood why I understood it because I had a partner with that experience, but I never knew why it really was taken to that route in the path. And after my dad died, it was the only way that I was able to hold the container for my mother and my brothers. Because when he passed, even though we knew he was sick, he was 57 years old, and it was, like we knew he was sick, but we never expected him to pass so young. And it all everything had made sense, right? At that point, I was putting all that together that I needed to hold a container for my family, and I was putting together too that my younger brother was becoming out of, let's put it like, the closet of the alcoholism. So he was an alcoholic, and everything that went down the drain in that time because of my father's death, we were able to navigate it and learn all the lessons because of his death, right? And because we were, and somehow Spirit was putting us in different strategic points in life that we were able to navigate that. Now, recently I learned that my brother's still stuck in the pain and suffering of our dad dead, and it's gonna be 23 years this year, but he was 17 at the time. But for him was really rough and still is rough. So I'm still holding the space for him to come, out of that suffering that he had created in his life. But thank you for all of you sharing your part today, and all the mothers out there. Thank you for sharing. What is we created an attachment with our children. That is, I believe that is the biggest lesson, to be attached for anything that they go through, and then we have to let them spread their wings. Not that we have to let them; they have to spread their wings. It's nothing that we can control or know. But I know this is the biggest lessons that as mothers we get to learn, is to be attached of the pain of our children that we want to prevent, and it's not possible. So
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. What's coming up for me is, thinking like Luke might have been able to, bring the love, forgiveness, and gratitude in this moment to bring the family together, but it's a dancing around the fire, right? He's the one holding the vision right now. But there may be a time that comes and all of a sudden now he needs somebody to hold that vision. All right. So as we do this body of work, it's really holding the vision. We remember, and then we're going to forget, and then somebody else will hold it, and then they forget, and then we hold it. Right? We're all just dancing around this fire of remembering, and we're all going to remember. We're all going to wake up at some point. We're all going to go beyond this dream. But while we're dancing around the fire, can we have joy dancing, and then also serve as an inspiration and a reminder of how to perceive the world, right? How to perceive all the things that are happening, especially losses, right? Things that are, deaths and things like that. Just because something is not, remember, I said it, the things that's not physically here does not mean it's dead. because only the body is gone. It's a vehicle that has been put away, but the spirit resides and it lives on, because each one of us, we're an idea. We are an idea. We represent an extension of an idea, and that idea is love. We are all extensions of it, and if we bring the person that was in that body idea back into our mind, they still live. Right? They still exist. It exists in my mind, and if I keep giving it attention, idea of it will grow, and I can continue to learn from it, and all of that. So, and a big part of this chapter that I love in chapter 18, the passing of the dream, which is so relevant to the conversation now that we're having here, is moving beyond. Oh, Natalia, that's so cute. Is moving beyond all the physical losses and the things that we have. The babes, yeah. So there's a in this section, I'm just gonna read like one little sentence here. This stays with me a lot. Okay, it says that you know what? Let me move back. Okay. You cannot distinguish between advance and retreat. So like what's going on for you? You can't distinguish that. Some of your greatest advances you have judged as failures. Some of your deepest retreats you have evaluated as success. And we never really know what's going on, right? What we think, oh man, I made $1 million right now. This must be a really good thing that's happening to me. That could be the biggest retreat. It could take you down a hole that, that would be a great lesson for you. Now, I don't know. But, that's why we give it all over. We give it all over to spirit, and we give it all over to God. Whether we think it's good or bad, any judgments, there is no good judgments and bad judgments. Judgment is like we gave the example earlier, it's gravity. The size of the monster weighs differently because you've judged it. Giving it over to spirit is like bringing it to space. It's got no weight. There's no judgment. Spirit, the Holy Spirit, doesn't see the judgment, doesn't see it as right or wrong that you've fed this monster and made this monster so big. Spirit's like, here, give it to me. Transmuted. Now it's gone. But you have to have the willingness to do that. And that's why the mantra, whenever we lose our peace, is God, show me a different way to look at it. And then also affirming that I am willing to look at it differently. And this applies to everything. It applies to everything that happens for you. Anytime you lose your peace, you can use that. And just keep you seeking. Remember, we're not seeking for the answer. We're seeking for the channel to which we can receive answers. We're trying to clear that. We're not looking for the answer. Because usually what ends up happening when we're searching for the answer is that we decide what's a good and fitting answer. So are we actually seeking for answers, or have we already made up our mind about what the answer really is? And so because of this ability to judge, right? You can't distinguish between your advances and your retreats. And then the course, going to the back to the manual for teachers, which is a great place to read a lot of things when you can't get into the course, right? You're like, oh man, I can't read it. It's too dense. It's too hard. In the manual for teachers, it's very simple sections. Like it says, should healing be repeated? How can perception, order of difficulty be avoided? Also, one of my favorite sections in the back is, how is judgment relinquished? This is so powerful. How is judgment relinquished? Right? And I'll read this, and this will be kind of our like closing out of this call. So in the manual for teachers in the back, how is judgment relinquished? Judgment, like other devices by which the world of illusions is maintained, is totally misunderstood by the world. So now, I am willing to see it differently means I have misunderstood judgment this whole time. Okay, now if I'm willing to see it differently, here's the course dropping how it's been misunderstood by you and the world. It is actually confused with wisdom and substitutes for truth. That's the way we have judgment. The way we have judgment is we think judgment is wisdom and is substitutes for truth. As the world uses the term, an individual is capable of good and bad judgment, and his education aims at strengthening the former and minimizing the latter. And we got to look at this into your own life and how you do judgments of good and bad judgments. There is, however, considerable confusion about what these categories mean. What is good judgment to one is bad judgment to another. Further, even the same person classifies the same action as showing good judgment at one time, and then it becomes bad judgment at another time. Nor can any consistent criteria for determining what these categories are be really taught. At any time, the student may disagree with what his would-be teacher says about them, and the teacher himself may be inconsistent in what he believes. Good judgment in these terms does not mean anything. No more does bad. It is necessary for the teacher of God to realize that not that he should not judge, but that he cannot judge. So we are, and when the course calls teacher of God, the course is saying that anybody that chooses to be teacher of God is a teacher of God, and it's the willingness to entertain this conversation. It's the willingness to be willing to reflect on what we're talking about today. This conversation of remembering. So for a teacher of God to realize not only should you not judge, but that you cannot judge. In giving up judgment, he is merely giving up what he did not have. So you give up judgment is not you giving up power or anything. It's you're giving up something you've never had in the first place. See, now we're like, oh yeah, I never had it. Cool. Then it's easy to just give it away. But you have to recognize and be with that first. He gives up an illusion, or better, he has an illusion of giving up. Okay, so when you're giving up a judgment or something that you're being right about, you're giving up an illusion. You're not giving up the truth. You're not actually giving up something. And then the course goes further and goes, or better, you have an illusion of giving up. You think you're even giving up anything. That's an illusion as a whole. You have actually merely become more honest. Oh, okay, that makes sense. I like being more honest. Recognizing that judgment was always impossible for you. You no longer attempt it. There is no sacrifice. When we give up judgment about something, we typically think there is a sacrifice that happens. If I forgive you, there's a sacrifice that happens. If I forgive somebody that physically abused me, I'm sacrificing something. Think about the insanity of that. You're not sacrificing anything. You're bringing peace and love back into your space, back into your life. But we're like, no. They did something wrong. If I forgive them, I'm sacrificing something. See, just the insanity. If we really break it down, it's pretty crazy. We're pretty crazy that we want to hold on to things like that. Right? So we no longer attempt it. There is no sacrifice. On the contrary, you put yourself in a position where judgment through him rather than by him can occur. So judgment can happen through you, but not by you. This is the course actually italicized the through and the by, just so that you can recognize it. Just so that you can recognize it, right? Truly recognize it. And think about it. When a judgment occurs, am I the one judging, or is judgment coming through me? That will be something to contemplate about for the rest of the day. And this judgment is neither good nor bad. It is the only judgment there is, and it is only one. The only one judgment is that God's Son is guiltless and sin does not exist. The aim of this curriculum, unlike the goal of the world's learning, is the recognition that judgment in the usual sense is impossible, that it is not an opinion, but a fact. In order, this is my favorite part of it, in order to judge anything rightly, and this is what makes me laugh all the time, this paragraph right here, in order to judge me, in order to, where am I? In order to judge anything rightly, one would have to be fully aware of an inconceivably wide range of things, past, present, and to come. One would have to recognize in advance all the effects of his judgment on everyone and everything involved in any way. And one would have to be certain there is no distortions in his perception so that his judgment will be wholly fair to everyone on whom it rests now and forever into the future. Who is in the position to do this? Who, except in grandiose fantasies, would claim this for himself? That's why none of us really are capable of judging. Think about that. If you judge, that means you must know all of eternity in order to make the judgment, and everything and everyone that is possibly affected by that judgment, so that you could be wholly fair about it. That your judgment actually is you're capable. So who's actually capable of doing that? So whenever I judge, I just laugh at myself now because I think about this paragraph. I'm like, wow. Am I capable of judging? Nope. So the course goes further and says, remember how many times you thought you knew all the facts you needed for judgment and how wrong you were. We all got this. We may not be able to remember a certain scenario right now, but that has happened for all of us. Is there anyone who has not had this experience? Would you know how many times you merely thought you were right without ever realizing you were wrong? Why would you choose such an arbitrary basis for decision making? Wisdom is not judgment, it is the relinquishment of judgment. That's it. Wisdom is going to come from you relinquishing judgment. Our confusion comes from our judgment and then trying to defend our judgment and having our judgment be like, oh my God, it was good this one time and it's crap the next time. And none of it is consistent. If it's not consistent, then just give it up. Right? It's an arbitrary basis in which we judge from. So let's just give it up.
Yeah, Alex, I was gonna say something. It just reminded me of something about judgments, or thoughts. Like, this is once that I heard this, that when we judge somebody, we actually placing ill wish on somebody. So, because everything is a thought, right? Everything is a manifestation of a thought. So what we think, what we say, the gossip and all that, there's a space, there's a field where that creates. And so, yeah, when we think something of somebody, there is it's like placing ill wish on somebody. So what Jesus said, judge righteously, right? It's really, if we're gonna say something about somebody, always say it in the highest form. See their perfection, because our words have power. So we have to watch what we say about people, and of course, and watch what we think. And that's why it becomes, we're training ourselves to become the witnesser, right? The witness of what we're saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, all these things that you are talking about, the Course of Miracle, it's really like practicing opening that gap, right? So that we have more time and space between the responsiveness and the reactiveness. We kind of just rest in that space, like, okay, before I say something, before I even think of something, let me just take a breath. Let me just relax and get back into that connection with our higher self. It's like, okay, how? What is it? Yeah, like you said, what is it trying to teach me? How can I be grateful for it? And how do I respond to this? So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that share. I oftentimes will be in a space where people will judge, right? And they'll say some things and try to get me to participate in the gossip or in that conversation. And because I have this moment of space, right, that allows spirit to come and cleanse my mind before I speak, or maybe I don't even speak. Most of the times I just smile and just nod, and then I carry on, but that doesn't stay with me. See, that's gone. I don't remember those things, and those are just like moments that were just cleared. It happened and it went through. There's no judgments. I don't think about it. But if I reacted and participated in that, that's going to stay on my mind and it's going to start eating at me. Then we've put this baby infant monster into our mind, and then we start thinking about it, right? Here it goes. That's how it enters. Then we entertain it. Then we start examining it. Then we take action to make it reality. And all of a sudden, this little baby monster, because of my entertaining of a certain conversation that doesn't really serve love, I've entertained it. Now I'm growing this monster in my mind. And so sometimes you don't participate. Just don't participate in it. Don't participate in drama and pain.
Yeah. It's funny. It's like that's part of being human too, right? It's like there's nobody that don't judge. Even the monks, they're meditating all day. There's judgment. So like be kind to ourselves. That it's okay. Things happen. We're just doing our own inner work every moment. Yeah. So definitely. And you just laugh at yourself. I just laugh at myself. Like, okay, here I go again.
Yes.
And especially with family and friends, sometimes they take you up and take me off. I'm like, okay, let me go back to think correctly.
We just laugh at ourselves, just laugh at ourselves for what we're doing, and then we forgive through laughter. That's a good chapter in a book. Forgive through laughter. Okay, so we'll wrap this call up. Thank you guys for hanging out a little longer than normal, but we'll wrap it up with, Marianne Williamson's A Year of Miracles. And I flip to day 125 for reflection on cancer as a metaphor. We're talking about metaphors all day, and I open a book, and Marianne Williamson is now going to drop her metaphor on cancer as metaphor. A cancer cell is a cell that has gone insane. It has disconnected from its natural intelligence. It has forgotten that it's here to collaborate with other cells, that it exists to serve the healthy functioning of the system of which it is part of. It has separated from the organ to which nature has assigned it, gathering other cells as sick as it is to build its own kingdom in a world apart. This false kingdom, this malignant tumor, seeks to preserve itself by growing more of itself. Thus, it threatens not only the host, but also itself. Can we see the correlation of our insanity through this cancer as metaphor? This is not simply a description of cells in the body. It is a description of the emotional malignancy of human malignancy of the human race, which has separated itself from our own natural intelligence. This emotional malignancy threatens the whole of humanity, just as the disease of cancer threatens one body. Our disease is the false belief that we are separate from each other, from God, from the rest of life, bearing no sense of responsibility or love for anyone or anything other than the selected beneficiaries of our own kindness. This distortion of our true sense of self is a cancer that will lead to the destruction of our species. It tempts us to forget our function as collaborators with others in promoting the healthy functioning of the whole of which we are a part. It will be healed in our bodies and in the world as we return to our natural selves. Oh man, her metaphor is badass. So on cancer as metaphor, it's just so powerful, so powerful to see how the cancer behaves and how we behave like it. Right? We see ourselves as apart from the whole functioning cells of the body, and we separate from the organ, we separate from everything else, and we gather others. We start spewing poison. This is the gossiping. This is every word that comes out of our mouth. That's what we have to cleanse, what we think and what we say. We're not going to gather others to be a part of our cancerous reactions and things like that. Right? We want to join our mind back to what we're here really for. And that we are here to collaborate, not here to create separation. Awesome. That was great. Thank you guys for being on this call. Good to see you, Tim. Good to see your kid. Good to see that you're doing great as a dad. Thank you for showing up. And everyone else, thank you all for being here. Much blessings, much peace be with you all. Have a great day.